Hi, Carina.
Hi. Yes, right. That's Joka. Yeah, hi, Joka.
Hi. And maybe we can start with introducing ourselves a little bit so we know who's in this meeting. I think Eva will soon be here as well. Ah, there is Eva. Hello, Eva. Maybe some more people will join later on. To right off the head, I'm Joka. I'm also working for the G1000. I'm meanwhile also a student. I'm doing more and I'm primarily interested in the theory behind everything that is related to citizen assemblies and the whole idea of what means democracy, what is participation. And therefore I'm also still in my student town, Wageningen. And yeah, that's from where it's now a sunny day. And that's from where I'm joining this beautiful conference, this G1000 University. Carina, where are you located?
I'm located in Maarhezen. It's 20 kilometers below Eindhoven, in the south of the Netherlands. I am what you call it? Council? No, what you call it? Member of council. That's what you call it, a raadslid in our well, big village actually. And I am that for 3 years now. And earlier this year, our party has actually started with bringing up the idea of voting or getting ideas through the way of participating and this type of assembly and things like that. And well, we got a lot to learn. That's what I noticed. And indeed, yeah, well, I'm willing to learn and listen to all people who've experienced things in a way that they actually, well, would have wanted differently, I think, differently done, more preparation and things like that. So yeah, and I heard Romans, if I can tutoyer, what's that in English again, whatever, when I can just speak, call your first name, then yeah, well, I was quite interested in how it was going and working out in Germany. So yeah, that's why I chose this, well, small, what you call it, a group of people to.
Thank you, Carina. Eva, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. This week I'm at Terschelling, which is a beautiful island in the Netherlands. But I'm originally from Rotterdam. But I have a week of holiday here. But this event seemed really interesting to me, so I decided to log in, even though I'm in beautiful nature. But my name is Eva Mirre, and I am a trainee at the Dutch program Democracy in Action, which is from the Ministry of Internal Relations. And the program is really focused on democratic renewal. So I am really interested from that viewpoint in things like the G1000 and how we can integrate it at a national, but also at a local level, because the program is actually focused more on the local governments in the Netherlands. And your topic that you shared in the chat, Roman, about institutionalization, I think that's an interesting topic to also focus on during this breakout session.
Yeah, so great. So as we are a small group, I think we can decide together what we talk and what the issues are.
Yes.
I've collected a little bit, and I just had a few ideas, and then we share, and then we decide what we do. Is that good?
Sounds
good.
I'm interested in what's a little bit missing in the scene, in my perspective, the combination of direct democracy and participatory democracy. That is interesting, that you can do very clever or not so good. And it's all about the right design. That's the first thing. The second is what you mentioned, Eva Mirre, that is institutional implementation by law. And also a little bit more in detail, what should be implemented? Is it necessary that there's an own organizational body? Who creates the question? Who designs the process? What is the relationship between private, state, and NGOs and all that, a little bit go more in detail. Then also, third thing is about the costs. How can you organize an assembly for £600,000 and €6 million? Well, what is the difference? And then how you can implement it, a little bit like political action. And also I'm interested in the conclusions concerning constitution, like the law issues. What is recommended? Is it necessary that you need a law? Did you have to change the common constitution? Is it ad hoc? Do you need some legal framework or not? So that would be the issues that I could offer.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I would say.
So what are you interested in? You already said that, if I'm hearing.
Yeah, but the institutionalization part, but also what you say about the combination between direct democracy and participation. I think that's also an interesting topic. Yeah. Oh, more people coming.
Hello, René. Can you see us, René? Or hear us?
Hey, René. Yay. Welcome. So René, now I'm very curious because we were also in a previous breakout room. From where are you joining us?
From a certain three groups. I work for Extinction Rebellion, locally and national, and the Transitiemotor, and a gang called. Ik kan het in het Nederlands doen, hè? Engels.
Yeah, preferably
Okay.
in English because
Okay.
I'm from Germany.
Money and Democracy. That's the third organization, and I'm working on citizen assemblies and how to finance the outcome of the citizen assemblies, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about money.
Beautiful. I think you're touching onto the topics that we were just discussing, where we will talk about.
Excuse me, I'm late.
No worries at all. Or at least I don't see the problem necessarily. So Roman was just gonna, I think, like inform us a little bit more of like how he's looking at the institutionalization of citizen assemblies, and one part of it is indeed like the costs that are involved and how we will manage to make this like ingrained in our systems. So yeah, lovely. Roman, can I hand the mic to you?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I would start with the combination of direct democracy and participatory democracy. In Germany, we have the situation that on the communal level, in every commune in Germany, and these are 11,000, you have the right to initiate a referendum on a local level. I don't know how it is in the Netherlands. I think similar, but not so comfortable, like in Germany, or at least in Amsterdam, it's possible, I think. No?
What was the question? Sorry, I missed it.
That to initiate a referendum on a communal level in the Netherlands?
I think we have the right, but it is not legally binding anymore, the outcomes of the referendum.
It's not binding. Yeah, so then in Germany, it's legally binding.
I don't think we are as far as you are in Germany already, in the Netherlands.
I think so too. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no rules as far as I know, but of course I'm more in local politics and things than I am countrywide. So
yeah, so we focused the last 30 years to introduce the possibility on binding referenda on the local level, and meanwhile we have that, and for most of the people it's not so interesting how the special democratic procedures are, but they want to change something. So we now broaden our focus in, let's say, you want to do something on, let's say, climate or traffic or building or things like that, you come to us, and then we try to give you the right instrument. Like we had the picture for a guy who has a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So, and we want to overcome that. Especially in small communes, it could be interesting just to talk to the mayor. So like, and then you do an assembly, and then you do an assembly ballot, and then you do in the end a referendum. So we combine all the instruments in an intelligent way. So that is what we try, because otherwise I think the climate change challenges, especially on a communal level, will not be met, at least in Germany. Every house has to be, you know, especially the heating problem is huge, because you have different owners. You have, it's not so easy to solve, like we build one big electricity plant and that will manage everything. You have, it's very complex and detailed. So, and so it's, we also try this on the national level, because one problem is what we also saw, who has the power to formulate the question. And as we saw in the second Citizens Assembly we did, there was no chance to get a question which really could have an impact on the problems we have. Then that's the reason why they went to things like the role of Germany in the world. It's like the role of Germany in the universe or something like this, or it's like you can have every answer on that or nothing. And this is the problem. When the question is too big, you get vague answers. If the question is too small and too narrow, it's like too little things and too detailed, and it's not interesting. To get the right measure or the right answer, that is one key thing, one key challenge, I think. And there we had some criteria. That is, the issue must be on the table. It must be on the agenda somehow. It's good when it's controversial. It's better than it's a consensus thing. It must be controversial. It must be on the right level. You can't discuss things on a communal level which is decided on the Länder or on the national level, or even on the European level. The level must be the right one. And the people must be interested in it, and the politicians must be interested in it, both. So, and that's not so easy, because when politics has no real interest in the question, people can work out what they want. The politicians will not really take it. They will say, "Oh yes, it was great, thank you. It's a great honor to get the recommendation," and so on. But as you know, there must be a real interest from the politics, and also a real interest from the citizens. So therefore, we think that not only the government or the parliament should have the possibility to initiate, but also the people. And I'm interested how you think on that. Is it a good idea that you have something like a bottom-up citizens assembly? Of course, you must meet some standards, like you can't do a question like out with all the refugees or things like that. You must, and that could happen, of course. Yeah, you must something have like in Germany we say Normenkontrolle. That means it must be within the constitution. It may not hurt human rights and the basic laws. That is one thing, and it must be on the right level. So.
Mm. I think it's an interesting question if it should also be a bottom-up, if the bottom-up process should also be facilitated, because also in the other presentation, where I don't remember her name, but she told because Extinction Rebellion actually really wanted to initiate the citizen assembly, it was the politicians, not all the politicians were in favor of the outcome because they thought, oh, this is a very activist thing to use. So I think that's an interesting, an important question to ask, because I think you want to give a say to citizens. So it's very logical to make it a bottom-up process. But at the same time, we still live in a representative democracy. So there should also then be agreements like what will be done with the outcomes, and that cannot be dependent on who initiates the citizen assembly. So that if an activist group initiates it, then the outcome will not be respected. So I think that's it's a difficult tension field.
Yeah, right. And also Extinction Rebellion has sometimes the notion that the recommendations must be taken over. And that is by law, at least in Germany, not possible. And for most politicians, it's a no-go. And for me too, because for me, a citizens' assembly has no legitimation by law. That is the problem. Only the parliamentarians, they are directly elected, or the citizens themselves by referenda can legitimate decisions. That is at least my point of view. And for the implementation, we thought of 4 steps. What you can implement first is that they take it, because that is not obvious that they really take it. Then is that you have a procedure that the recommendations went into the parliamentarian framework, because they have workflows in the parliament. So that one simple thing is that it gets a number how laws are treated. I don't know what is this in English. Drucksache. Can you understand that? A number in the parliament, like a stamp, and then it's not. Then you can deal with it. Yeah. Then you point out a responsible committee. Then next level could be you give the citizens the right to speak in the committees, and that that there is a discussion in person, and then that there is something like a report, and that there must be a report where you justify or reason why you take over things, why you modify things, or why you reject things. And I think that is enough. And in our experience, the citizen assemblies participants don't expect more. They don't expect that politicians take over their recommendations, because they themselves don't see themselves as the experts. We often have comments from people like, oh, I'm so glad that I don't have to decide that, because it's so complicated. It's such a dilemma. How do I deal with China? How do I deal with climate issues? So now I understand the complexity of the problem, and my opinion is in the moment that. So, and for them, it's enough. Yeah? So that is what we propose, these 5 or 4 steps. And that is a lot, I think. Yeah.
And another thing that you raised was that it's important to think about the right level. So is it a national theme or a regional theme? But I think that's sometimes quite difficult to answer, because, for example, when talking about climate change, some things are agreed upon on European level, and also in the Netherlands, some things are agreed upon on the national level. And now on a local level, you see that there citizen assemblies are organized. But then sometimes you have to say to citizens, yeah, okay, but we have to do this because it's agreed upon on a national level. So how do you decide what is the right level?
I think there you must be very clear because that is totally important, that you do the right expectation management. And you don't, because people instantly know when you somehow want to cheat or manipulate them. They feel it suddenly. They feel it instantly. You can say, this we can't decide. So that is the line. We can talk about this, but our responsible mayor or elected representative like Karina, they can't do anything on that. So like, we know that, so we don't discuss it. And of course you can do many things on climate change on a communal level. You can do really many things. Let's focus on that, what really can be done on that level. Then people are really content and satisfied. Otherwise, it's like waste of time and energy and motivation and motivation.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we think that it should be, there are 3 steps that you can implement that, or 4. It's like you don't know legal framework. You can do that ad hoc, you say, just the parliament decides it. Because it's like the legal term is self-binding. The parliament can always self-bind itself. So we say we give an order to the citizens and then we take it over and we promise that we take into account what you decide. They always can do that. That is the first thing. The second is there are rules of every parliament, like Geschäftsordnung. What is that in English? The bylaws or something like this. The bylaws of the parliament.
Yes, you could be right. Yeah.
Yeah. Every parliament has rules how it runs things.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And you put the way how you deal with citizens' assembly in the bylaws of the parliament. That would be the lowest level, and I think also a clever level, because this is easier to adapt than a law. You start with it, then you see, okay, you have 3 or 4 examples. Let's better it and enhance it a little bit on that low legal level. I think that is, as a start, interesting. Then the next step, you put it in a law, like a participation law, especially on the national level, and then you write it in the constitution. So, especially the bottom-up thing, I think it's necessary that you write it in the constitution, because to enforce a parliament to do something is not so easy legally. Yeah.
Even on local matters. That's right. No, but when things come from bottom up, indeed, from civilians, and they come with the idea, a great idea, then well, yeah, people own it and they want to do anything to make it work, I feel. No?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Do you have a preference for one of those 4 routes?
I wouldn't start with a constitution, and I wouldn't do it ad hoc. This is the problem, like in Ireland or other way. Like Graham already told, there is one assembly, and then nobody knows how is there a following one, how it is, and so on. So in between, bylaw, write it in the bylaws, or simple law. That I would prefer a law, but you also can write it in the bylaws. Yeah. So,
yeah.
And also to change the bylaws, you need a law. So.
How does that work with participation more in general in Germany? Is there a law which enforces this, or that there are common rules that local politicians have to follow?
No.
Because that's also a discussion in the Netherlands,
right.
whether it should be, yeah.
Right. And that is interesting, Evamire, because when you do it in a law, I think it should not only focus on citizen assembly. It should be something like a participation law. You can put different things, different processes, formats. Also, you can write in finance things or how you support democracy issues. You can make it a little broader. but then it's also more complicated to get all in. So,
Yeah.
so, and on the local level in Germany, you have the right for referenda, but everything else is not legally binding. This is, we distinguish between formal and informal procedures. And all the participation things are informal things.
Yeah.
Which are sometimes made very good, or sometimes they were used just from politicians to push their things through. We all know that, yeah. You do a process and everything is still decided, but you don't, you use it as a communication transmission thing to push your things which are pre-decided through. Yeah. So that people don't like so much.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
No, they feel cheated, then, don't they?
Yeah. And then yeah. Oh, any comments on that, or what you think on that?
It is a bit different here, I think. I mean, different, as I said, I feel in the Netherlands we're not that far on yet, even locally. I mean, or local government only this year has said yes to, right, let's see what is possible to do things through a type of, not a referendum, but civilian, what did we call it, assembly, participation, that an idea or a dilemma is going to be put out on the table. Right, we want a solution for this. Please go through the way of burgerparticipatie, assembly of what you call it, well, locals. Do it through random picking people or sending them an invitation or something like that. They can still decide yes or no, I want to participate. But beforehand, of course, you have to have put rules down, more or less. Well, actually, more than less. What the frames, the what you call it, the kaders, the lines are in between which you have to walk, and if not, well, then it doesn't work. What the questions are, people have to be able to find out about the subject. They have to get used to, right, think or have an opinion on something, because people don't. They just go along what the government or local government says or finds, and then, right, yeah, let's do that. But when there is a dilemma indeed, and people find, right, it's up to us now, what do we actually think? Then there are indeed lines in between which they can do that referendum, not referendum, what you call it?
Assembly.
Participation, assembly, yes. And the local government has to have rules in place, indeed, what they are going to do with the outcome, how the outcome is being assessed, actually, and then in what way it's gonna be implemented. But that's the local things we are now, not fighting, but well, yeah, actually we are fighting for, because it's not around yet. It's not like in local laws put down that it's the common way.
Mm.
Yeah. Especially in our, well, countrywide politics. No, only just the last half a year, I think, that I've come across a few items actually that were discussed or decided with this type of tool. Let's call it that. Mm. So that's where I was so interested in how Germany is coping with that, and how Germany is getting on with all this way of making rules and making politics and making life, actually. So I was very pleased to hear how you were going on in Germany already, and where we are stumbling across things, little rules. And
that's interesting. Can you imagine how many local referenda in Germany were held in the last years?
In Germany or? In
Germany?
No idea.
7,000.
Whoa. You should share that.
Yeah.
3,000 decisions and 7,000 processes. So in between, you have the possibility that the citizens and the mayors, they make a compromise, or they come together. So 7,000 Verfahren or yeah.
Rules, regulations, laws,
Yeah.
local. Gee.
Yeah. So that is
Amazing.
Yeah, that is good.
It's interesting.
And
yeah. Oh, sorry.
And perhaps an idea for you for the Netherlands. We made something like a survey. What is the most important single factor that participation processes start? And one thing is very easy, but you oversee it, is in the communes where you have a participation officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, when you put somebody there and you have a head count and an office and a desk and so on, and a task, of course,
yeah.
Then he has something to do, then things will start up. Yeah. And you don't have a brilliant idea how you do that and what issues and so on. Just start and announce we have one responsible woman or guy, which is our participation officer who deals with that issue. And that creates something.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you must in the beginning find the right person, not like too much a civil servant type, but a creative person. And then things can go on more easily than do things by law and institutionalize things and so on. Just one person is enough, especially in smaller communes, not like Munich or Amsterdam or Rotterdam, but in small communes that works very, very well. And it's not so expensive.
Doesn't have to be, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we come, yeah, René.
I've got another question. There's a different culture in Germany than in Holland. So how come? And I thought of maybe the media in Germany react different than in Holland. If 70% of the politicians in Germany, like you said in your presentation, were in favor of a citizen assembly, in Holland, it is just not too much. And we're for sure less than 51%. Otherwise, we would have it. So, and the media in Holland are held back. Sometimes you see an article, that's okay, but it's a little bit withdrawn. You don't see it every day. You don't see it locally every day. You don't see it in the. Okay. So, can you give us an impression of how the media in Germany works?
Yeah, I can do that. First, to clarify, I think 80% from the politicians we talk to are in favor. That's not the same like all the politicians, because some and the real enemies, they don't talk to us. So, but I'm often surprised how positive are politicians on citizens' assemblies. And that is not an issue which is easily located on the left or on the right wing. That is interesting for me. Also, conservative people can rely on that, often more easy than progressive leftish people. So it's not so easy to be located. And yeah, for us, coming from the perspective that the citizens are the sovereign and always should have the final say, that was very easy to discuss in the 90s, in the beginning of the 2000s, and it just made a turn after the Brexit. That was a huge breakdown. Then the right-wing party AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, and the Trump election. These three things really changed everything. in Germany, especially the Brexit. That was really for the most politicians, like, how can people decide on that? And of course, they didn't think that that is not the kind of referenda we want. We don't want a prime minister to set the date and do the question and in 3 months and all that kind of stuff. That is from the process design totally wrong. But you can't explain that because and that is not really a rational thing, but like a subconscious thing that touches subconscious fears of not being any longer able to be in control or something like this. You can't reach people on that level and they agree, but they still are against it because you must come to the emotional level and bring that in. So, and yeah, and I think we have something like a little hype in Germany, also in the media. We had some very, in the beginning, some main journalists who went to Ireland and took place in that part and did really good pieces in a newspaper. And that when you set a positive intention in the beginning from the main media, then it's not so easy to write it totally down. No. And we do also we focus really on media work from More Democracy. We don't organize only the process, but we focus at least 20 or 30% on media work. And I think that is totally underestimated. Like Sarah told, a little bit you get an impression from Sarah. I have to think the process itself is the core, but totally underestimated is what is needed before and after it and parallel to it. So it's only just the cornerstone, but without all the other modules, it don't come to its full potential. I don't know if it's a total direct answer to you, René.
Yes, it gives a quite good impression. Okay. For instance, I can give you a small example.
Yeah,
I come from Rotterdam, and so there was a climate emergency motion expelled by our government from Rotterdam. And there was no attention at all in the media. None, zero.
Really?
Yes. So that was very strange to me. And it says something about, I don't know how it works, but politicians work together with media or whatever, I don't know exactly. But something is happening, what is not the way it should be working. So there are some issues that we cannot talk about. So that's the climate, that's the citizen assembly. Okay, we can talk about it, but it's not widely spread in the media. And how to finance our society.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay, that's why I asked the question. Yeah. And thank you so much for giving us more insight on how it works in Germany.
Yeah, that is interesting, and we had a very huge media coverage, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles. And we came from a total different expectation, like when you get 1 or 2 pieces, well, that's cool, and then now to a situation where you cannot count it, so much is it. Like, and these are there is sometimes a logic in it that you can control, like self-motivating in a way. Yeah?
Yes.
But let's come to the costs, because you are also in an organization which deals with money, like I understood in the beginning.
Yes, that's okay. Yes.
Yeah. Because I think that that is also a crucial thing. I didn't mention it. We organized 3 citizens' assemblies, and they are costing all between 1 and 2 million euro on the national level. Mm-hmm. And that is, and we all finance them ourselves. Half of foundations and the other half of donations of our organization. And of course, we are aware that not everybody is capable in doing that. Yeah, this is only because we are a grown organization and we focus and we put everything, every money in that. Like, yeah. And we want to do that to bring that over a certain threshold, and then it must be organized and paid by the state, because that's a public task. Also, the finance of that thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's what you. How can I say this in a few seconds? That's quite hard. Money should not be a problem,
Right?
whatever, in citizen assemblies or in child labor or in healthcare or whatever. It's just in the mind of politicians and in the minds of the universities that teach those scholars one way. There are mainstream economics and non-mainstream economics that can tell you a lot of different ways to create money. For instance, you can create money not in the way of debt, like our system tells you we should do it.
Are you talking about positive money?
Yes, you could say positive money. That's one way. Yes, yes.
Or another? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you could create money for whatever you want.
Yeah. I agree. I agree, Randy.
Yes, there's one limit. You can create as much as money as you want, as long as people have time to work for it. So don't spend more money than people can work. They've got 8 hours per day for limitations to work. You could say 5 days a week. So more money is not necessary. Okay. Now that's the limitations of money. And then if everyone is working, you've got a limitation of work. Then you could say, okay, should we be working on a factory that produces cars, or should we be working at a hospital that takes care of people? So now that's in a few seconds the choices we can make, but politicians don't want us to make it, to be aware, and don't want us to make choices. So climate measures are not a problem in terms of money. That's what they tell you, but it is not true.
Yeah, I personally would love to go deeper into that, especially how you would explain the limitation of money, because I didn't really understand it clearly, how you would, why that is a limitation. But I think it needs a little bit away from our topic.
Yes, that's. I must be short. I can't talk half an hour with you about this topic. So maybe we can do it later or whatever, so you can understand how money works.
Yeah.
It ties also into what we talked about earlier, that it's a different culture. So in the Netherlands, participation and citizen assemblies are really seen as like a thing you have to do, like on the side, exactly. And not as a fundamental thing, like, okay, our democratic system is not working as it should, so maybe we should think differently about it, and this is a fundamental thing to change it. But more like, oh, we have to let citizens speak about windmills, but actually we don't want to. Like, that's kind of the sentiment I feel like we have in the Netherlands. And I think that's, so you need a culture change to change this perception. We need to have like more of a narrative about trust, instead of that these citizens will speak and they will only bring opposition. And I think that's how do you facilitate this culture change? Do you do it by law, by implementing it on a national level, like every municipality needs to do this and this and this, or is it something that needs to grow naturally? But how do you do that? Yeah, I think that's maybe a bit of a big question, but if you have ideas about
it's totally clear. But if there is no cultural change first, there will be no implementation by law.
No, I think you're right.
So first the mindset and the heart must warm up for that issue, And I think that politicians, if they have that feeling like, yeah, the citizens and so, and we have to, because we are a democracy, and you do that and you have to listen to, and so that is, when you don't overcome that, nothing will happen. The question is that you get at least some politicians or some mayors, or you do like in Germany you say a model project, where you cooperate with a local parliament or a mayor, and you find a question where they are really interested in, where they have a real inner intrinsic motivation to ask the people, because even they themselves are not sure. Like you take a real dilemma situation, and then try if they get answers, or at least, and you don't have to exaggerate. Citizens don't bring up, in my opinion or experience, new solutions. Because experts, or normally you have all the ideas there. There is an exception on the communal level with when there are Gestaltung, creation topics, how you create a special place and so on. So people can, when there is co-creation, there can emerge new things. Yeah? But often politicians really don't know what the people want.
No.
And you only have the possibility of polls, but with polls you don't get an answer what people really think after a fact-based discussion. It's a poll is like a reaction. That's it. But no real fact-based opinion. And I think by a lot, that is the only way that politicians get really answers from the citizens. And that is the unique point or selling point for citizens' assemblies or formats like that. And when politicians understand that, they start to use it. And in Germany, you have another driver that is the big infrastructure enterprises. They don't build big projects without citizen participation in the beginning. And that is, and not the in the beginning, only the PR offices said we need civil participation. Meanwhile, the controllers, the finance guys, want participation in the beginning because they know it's cheaper for the whole process when you really bring up the issues and the obstacles and all that kind of stuff in the beginning, because then you, in the beginning, you can, when you do the plan, it's very easy to change things. In the end of a long process, it's very difficult to change things, and it costs a lot of money. So that, I think, are the two main partners. It's economy and politicians, and you take their real deep interest, what they really want, and you work together with them. That is how you get a change, I think.
Yeah. And use good examples, of course.
Yes. Yes, that is the best. That is the best. Yeah. So for us, yeah, for us, Ireland was the door opener with the head of parliament, Wolfgang Schäuble. He said, "Come and explain me how did they do it in Ireland?" And there were a lot of scientists sitting there, and he said, I'm not interested in science. I want to hear the practitioners how it works. So that was interesting. Yeah.
What triggered them? Yes. Yes. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Oh, I learned a lot today already.
To come to the costs, I think there is one factor which is which you have to decide, and that is a very special thing. When you have an assembly of, let's say, 100 people, and the people are discussing on small desks with 6 or 7 people, Then you have 13 or let's say 15 desks. And then do you moderate it? Or is it a self-moderation? And that is a huge difference, because otherwise you need 15 people a day for 10 days. And I don't know how you pay a moderator, how much you pay a moderator a day in the Netherlands. What are the amounts?
I wouldn't know.
You don't know?
We haven't used them, have we? Yet.
Okay, what would you say?
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure, because right now I think it's mainly done, for instance, my experience with the G1000 is that it's a full package of infrastructure, moderation, and all together. So I'm not 100% sure. But I know that for an assembly with the G1000, I think with 100 people, it goes over the 2,500 euros, I think, to organize it. And that's now a little bit of an assumption I'm making.
2,500
Yeah.
euro?
Yeah.
Only you said.
Per day or what? Or
I'm
no.
not 100% sure. Wait, I'm gonna look
That's
at the
nothing.
number.
Then I come to you.
We're only starting, Roman. We're only starting.
No. I
am wrong. I think it's with 150 participants or 50 participants. It's 25,000.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
25,000 with 50 participants.
One day.
No, that's the whole package of multiple days. So I think it's most of the times it's 3 days.
That's cheap.
Okay.
So most of the work is done voluntarily, I think. Not?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Not quite sure.
But
Because-
yeah, but the question about moderators also came up this morning, not from a financial viewpoint, but also from just more of like a
Benefit of them.
everyone to be heard. Yeah, do you want to have like a neutral person so that everyone is heard, or more of an organic process?
Yes.
So apart from costs, it's also interesting to think about whether you actually want it at all.
Yes. And the philosophy behind moderation, because there are different philosophies and ways how to moderate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how you really bring up the things that people really think. And I think also the whole emotional stuff must be part of the discussion, especially for the climate issue, because in the beginning, when you it's such a challenge for the most of the people when they really face how bad the situation is. So in the first 2 weekends, people are literally shocked. And if there is not a possibility to express that shock, like, and there are different ways, like I freeze, or I'm getting overactive, or I just disassociate. And so, and when you are not able to share what's happening inside me, you don't come really to a common co-creative action. And that is, and these are formats which I would be really interested in, that you have the outer discussion and also the inner discussion. What is happening now, yeah, within us. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would also be a good way to deal with opposition or weerstand.
Right.
Yeah, because it's most of the time more of an emotional response, I think. And people do not want to feel heard, of course, because it's a big impact. So it is important, to give attention to the emotional aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm living in an eco village, which I founded with two friends. Now we are 150 people. We have our own school, own agriculture, seminar house, and so on. And so we decide everything in consensus. So we are really trained.
Yeah. Where is the eco village?
It's in the south of Germany. I write the URL down. Schloss Tempelhof, it's called. Yeah. So this is my personal lab to try out things.
Cool.
So first self experiment, and then we go out. And we have also a more democracy office here, yeah, in Tempelhof. So it's not Tempelhof Berlin, it's Tempelhof in the south. It's a small village, yeah. So
Nice, and that's beautiful, like the labs and trying out. And I think what is interesting now, we're talking about the trials, and we started with talking about institutionalization.
right.
And for me, these are two things that are almost opposite. Once you start to institutionalize things, you more or less remove the flexibility. Besides there, like what I'm hearing in our conversation is like there's still so many pathways to go, and also there is a little bit like a confusion between participation and what do we really expect from citizen assemblies. And I also still heard to the thoughts about whether we're doing it from the bottom up or whether it should be the responsibility of a government arrangements.
Yeah.
And especially related to the money, like how much it will cost and what is necessary, and also to stress out for people to be heard and to officialize what we're the processes that we want to initiate. We need an official recognition. So
Right.
I think all with all, and it seems to come to a circle, but at the same time, I think it's also like the dot of a really big question mark that we're still dealing with.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, that's, I guess that is always when you're developing and making things grow and explore.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes left, and I don't think that I've been able to really capture everything that was being said. First of all, I want to thank you all for participating, but I also would like to leave the mic open if anyone still wants to contribute or ask a question or make a statement or share their takeaway message.
Mm.
Yeah, I see René.
Yes, in answer to your question, Roman, about the money issue, there's a citizen assembly going on right now. It's about the strategy of the European Central Bank, and I wrote it in the chat. It's going on also in Germany.
Yeah.
And it ends in October 2021. I don't know if the German experts that's not the same as the Dutch experts, but the Dutch contribution is quite good, I must say. I presume that the German contribution is as good as well. Maybe it gives you something of an idea.
Thank you.
Right.
A last thought, what I had, what you, following what you said, Jukka. We had sometimes the problem when we introduce the process design of a citizens assembly, then politicians often think it must be like the first. So 2 weekends and this and that. And for us, it was very interesting just to say the process design depends on the function, on the question, and every process will be different. And that you have on the one hand the institutionalization, and on the other hand the flexibility to design the process after it's we have
2 minutes left.
Yeah, but you got the idea. You already got the idea.
Yeah.
That is key. That is really key.
That's key. And that actually makes me think, I'm sorry, Evamira and Karina, if I'm jumping in your time, but it really makes me think of what we're also touching upon is like a cultural change that has to happen. Because what you're right now describing, like also from personal experience, is that municipality, like a government, doesn't like it when you are proposing a plan that is like, well, actually, it's very flexible. We're not really sure yet, like depending on choices we're making, we're designing the project. And I think governments are not really used to that way of working. Neither are citizens. So I think this conversation that we're having today, I wish that we would all find a way to making it part of a national conversation that is happening at the barbecue on Friday evening. Like, how do you think we're going to solve democracy? But that is a thought for later on. Well, the last 50 seconds, does anyone want to share a final thing? Are we
Well, I hope that I learned a lot already today, and what I'm going to use in our local discussion is that Ireland and Germany are really working like that. So it's not only our small villages that try to start things like that, but no, we got a good example. So thank you, Roman. Thank you. I'm really going to use that.
And I hope Eva made it for your project as well.
Yeah, it was really interesting things. And I also, last thing, the question mark also makes it interesting, right? That we can still learn and